The human brain is an extraordinary organ. Functioning at optimal levels, it's our best friend, performing tasks from regulating our breathing and heart rate to coordinating our movements, allowing us to interpret touch and develop reasoning. There are approximately 86 billion neurons in the brain which fire information electrochemically via connections called synapses. At speeds of up to 250 miles per hour, this sophisticated instrument that we rely upon can produce some extraordinary and hugely distressing results in how we perceive reality and how we behave. In this video we'll be taking a look at 5, thankfully rare, but truly strange psychological delusions. Now before we begin, we'd like to say a special thank you to this video's sponsor, Mech Arena. Taking a break from the darker side of the internet and the intensity of research is a vital key to our success here at Top 5s, and helping people in need is our core value. One of our favourite ways to step away from the computer and unwind is mobile gaming, specifically with the titles that allow us to escape into miniature digital worlds, while still providing us with satisfying objectives, such as maintaining our values of compassion and assistance. Our favourite game that does both is definitely Mech Arena. Mech Arena is an absolutely brilliant 5v5 mech shooter mobile game, free to download on any Android or iOS device. It withholds countless unique mechs to choose from, customizable with only the coolest weapons and slickest skins to make you stand out from the crowd. Play on a variety of maps under one of the many game modes, and hone your skills as either a solo player or on a team to take on fast-paced competitions and rise up the ranks to conquer the world of mech gaming. And if you sign up today, you're just in time to join in on Mech Arena's newest promotion. Running till December 15th, Mech Arena is holding an event where players complete objectives to raise money for charity. Their goal is to raise $100,000 through players collectively destroying 1 billion mechs in-game. But that's not all. The more mechs you destroy, the more prizes you'll receive, such as limited edition skins, power-ups, in-game currency, and even Mech Arena merch, shipped to your doorstep. You can also compete to be entered into a Mech Arena Championship on December 16th, where you'll have a chance to play 5v5 and win the ultimate reward, the opportunity to pilot a real-life mech. Most importantly, your efforts will help raise money for Able Gamers, a charity dedicated to inclusion of all facets of gaming for those with disabilities. They sponsor community participation, help develop lifelong friendships, and make sure every single human, no matter your ability, has access to video games. They are leading the industry with training and consultation, and with our help, their mission can become the overwhelming reality. To learn more, visit ablegamers.org. So what are you waiting for? Scan the QR code on screen to get a heraldic, 3 gold crates, and 50,000 credits to get you started. And now, hit those lights, sit back, and enjoy. Boanthropy. There are certain psychological conditions where the sufferer believes that they are turning into or have become an animal. Boanthropy is one such disorder. Here the individual believes that they are either a cow or an ox, which can result in them behaving as such. They will take to eating grass and will even move about on their hands and knees. As ludicrous as it sounds, and as scarce as instances of boanthropy are, they still occur today, according to Matthew Stanford, a professor of psychiatry at Baylor College of Medicine. The condition is so unusual that there appears to be no sign of any clinical studies into it, nor is there a firm notion on what causes the delusion. A variety of suggestions have been put forth, whereas some clinicians link it to schizophrenia. Others suggest it may occur as a result of hypnosis or a manifestation of anxiety. The eminent psychoanalyst Carl Jung even posited that dreams could be a prelude to the onset of boanthropy. Interestingly, the depiction of the madness of Nebuchadnezzar II, king of ancient Babylon, as relayed in the Old Testament book of Daniel, is often cited as one of the first and most infamous cases of boanthropy. Here the king is laid low by insanity for 7 years, and the text describes how the king was driven from men and did eat grass as oxen. However, as no other text infers that the king ever displayed such behaviour, this account must be viewed with skepticism. Though it is intriguing to think of the Bible as potentially referencing this singularly strange mental disorder, though the root cause of this condition is still elusive, the current treatment focuses on cognitive behavioural therapy and medication. Somatoparaphrenia. Somatoparaphrenia is referred to as a neurophysiological delusion, as the condition has most often been observed in people who have either suffered strokes or right hemisphere brain lesions. but it's such an extraordinary affliction we wanted to include it. Individuals with this condition do not believe that either an entire limb or one side of their body belongs to them, or is even attached to their own body. Even when presented with irrefutable proof of the limb or area is indeed theirs, the patient will proffer explanations which they wholeheartedly believe as to whom the limb really belongs to and why it's there. One study documented how a 78-year-old lady who had suffered from a stroke which resulted in left side paralysis came to believe that her left arm belonged to her granddaughter. When prompted to touch the limb, she searched the space around it and required help to identify where it was. Though doctors tried to reason with her and asked her to regard her left hand, her response was still one of doubt, and at times appeals to logic simply strengthened her belief that the limb was alien to her. This delusion did not subside until some months after her discharge from hospital. The use of third-person perspective given through mirror therapy has proved successful in this strange and troubling condition. Nonetheless, this approach requires persistence, and once no longer in front of their own reflection, the delusion can return. Delusional parasitosis. The thought of being infested with tiny parasitic organisms or insects is highly unappealing, but for those that suffer from delusional parasitosis or Ekbom syndrome, as it's also known, well, this is the very thing they believe to be true. First described in 1938 by the Swedish neurologist Carl Axel Ekbom, who found the condition to be prevalent in postmenopausal women. This affliction can appear as a delusion, as a hallucination, or as what is termed as overvalued idea. That is to say, the patient is neither delusional, obsessive, or hallucinating, but is suffering from a solitary, deviant belief, which dominates their life. Often the condition begins with the individual experiencing a prickling or crawling sensation. Once convinced that they are infested with insects or pathogens, they often attempt to remove the organism by overzealous cleaning, scratching, pinching, or even digging into their skin. Subjects suffering from Ekbom syndrome often seek help from dermatologists, and the extent of their belief sometimes leads them to preserve what they believe to be a sample of the offending parasites with them, claiming that they have retrieved them from their person. This evidence usually consists of lint or pieces of skin. Even after tests conclude that they have no parasitic infection, the patients refuse to believe it. To further complicate matters, the symptoms of the condition may be real, but the cause has simply been misinterpreted. The sensation they feel may be due to a variety of health complaints, such as vitamin B deficiency or diabetes, brain disorders like dementia or schizophrenia, or it may be the side effect of certain medications or drug abuse. However, it may also occur unexpectedly in otherwise healthy individuals, with women more commonly affected than men. It has also been noted that those who live with minimal social contact are at higher risk of developing Ekbom syndrome. Left untreated, the individual may inflict severe harm on themselves in an attempt to displace their imagined contamination. Presently, the options for relieving this delusion is limited to psychotherapy, which alone has low efficacy, and the use of antipsychotic drugs. Hopefully in the future, a more successful remedy will be found for this horrifying, albeit rare syndrome. Capgras Delusion. In what could easily be the premise of an intriguing yet terrifying film or book, Capgras Delusion, categorized as a delusion misidentification syndrome, leaves the subject believing that a loved one, friend, or even a pet has been replaced with an imposter. Again, this syndrome occurs frequently alongside disorders such as schizophrenia, dementia, and brain lesions, as well as those who have brain damage or substance abuse issues. The delusion may also result in the individual claiming that they themselves, places, possessions, and properties have been substituted with identical replicas. Individuals may even assert that time has been distorted or substituted in some way. Like Ekbom syndrome, Capgras delusion occurs more often in women, though it is more commonly seen to manifest itself in violent tendencies in men. One case study describes how a 40-year-old woman whose abnormal behavior had led to her receiving a psychiatric evaluation proclaimed that her 9-year-old daughter had been replaced by an imposter, as her real daughter was in the custody of the social services department. Sadly, her delusion persisted and seemed to deepen to the point she refused to take her child home from school. Her behaviour became gravely concerning, as whilst outside the school, she shouted, "Give me my daughter, I know what you've done." Despite continual reassurances and receiving medical treatment, the woman's belief that her daughter had been replaced with a doppelganger did not subside, and she refused to entertain the idea she was suffering from any delusional illness, or that this child was in fact genuinely her daughter. Heartbreakingly, for the sake of her safety, the child was removed from the mother's care and subsequently placed in the care of social services. The condition can be relatively fleeting, or maybe a long-term chronic condition. The longer the individual suffers from it, the higher the risk of violence towards the perceived imposter is, especially if they live with the patient. Sadly, it's still a largely misunderstood condition with little treatment available outside the use of antipsychotic drug therapy. Cotard Delusion. This condition was first discussed in 1880 by the French neurologist Jules Cotard, who referred to it as the delirium of negation. Astonishingly, Cotard Delusion is when the affected individual believes that they have either lost their vital organs, their blood supply, or that they are dead, and even decomposing. Also referred to as walking corpse syndrome, Cotard Delusion usually occurs in people with pre-existing mental health conditions, ranging from bipolar disorder and depression to neurological issues such as multiple sclerosis and Parkinson's disease. Though brain trauma can also lead to this alarming affliction, and conversely, it may appear in individuals with no health conditions at all. The severity of the delusion varies, but common early symptoms include the patient displaying a sense of nihilism, that is, the belief that life is utterly meaningless, as well as anxiety, hypochondria, feelings of uselessness, and suicidal thoughts. The sufferer tends to withdraw from society and abandon their personal hygiene and overall well-being. One case study describes how a stressed and bewildered family member of one 53-year-old lady suffered with this condition actually phoned 911 because the woman concerned kept complaining that she knew she was dead, as she could smell her rotting flesh and expressed a desire to be taken to the morgue. As this lady refused to be treated for a mental disorder, her family supported the act of taking the case to court so she could legally be treated without her consent. She was prescribed a combination of drugs used to combat anxiety, bipolar disorder, and depression. Mercifully, her symptoms abated and she voluntarily agreed to continue psychiatric treatment. This success reinforces the benefit of early diagnosis and treatment. Even some of the most unusual and disturbing conditions have a chance of being alleviated with proper care and understanding. So that's 5 bizarre psychological disorders. An incredibly brief but interesting insight into the mind. It's interesting, though enormously sad, to learn that mental illness is considered to be a contributing factor in so many conditions such as these. Studies show that 1 in 4 people suffer from some sort of mental health issue, and it's important for us all to strive to understand more about how we and those around us may be affected, and the more we understand about the brain, the easier this will be.